The call came in while I was stirring pasta. Not dramatic, not a siren, just a calm voice that made my stomach drop anyway. "Hi, this is Child Protective Services. We need you to come in today." I stopped stirring. The spoon just hung there. "Today?" I repeated. "Yes," the woman said. "It's about your son." My son, Milo, was in the living room building something out of blocks, humming to himself, completely unaware that one phone call can turn a normal Tuesday into a full-body panic. "Did something happen at school?" I asked. "We'll discuss it in the office," she said, and gave me an address and a time. I didn't sleep the whole ride there. I kept replaying every moment of the last week like I could find the part where I suddenly became the kind of mother CPS shows up for. I wasn't late on pickups. He wasn't missing meals. He wasn't bruised. He had a pediatrician, a routine, a bedtime that he fought like it was a personal mission. So what could possibly be in a report? The CPS office was exactly what you'd expect. Beige walls, plastic chairs, and that quiet feeling like everyone is trying not to fall apart in public. A caseworker came out and called my name. "Ms. Hart?" Her name tag said, Lydia. Early 30s. Tired eyes, but not cold. More like she'd seen enough to know when someone is lying and when someone is just scared. She walked me into a small room, sat down across from me, and slid a folder onto the table. "This is the report," she said. Then she turned one page over and pushed it closer. In bold, near the top, allegation, abandonment. I felt my throat close. Abandonment? I echoed. Lydia didn't perform it. She didn't lecture. So she just asked, straightforward, "Why did you leave him alone?" "I didn't," I said immediately. "I've never left my child alone." She nodded once like she expected that answer and tapped the paper. "The report states you left him unsupervised overnight," she said. "It also says you left the residence and wouldn't answer calls." "That's not true," I said. "I was home." Lydia looked at me. "Okay, then we need to sort out facts." She slid the page closer. "Read the details." I read. My hands were cold. It described my home, my street, my schedule, like someone had been taking notes. Then I hit a line halfway down, and my eyes stopped. The report said, Milo, Munch, was left alone. My stomach dropped in a different way, because nobody calls my son that. Not his school, not his pediatrician, not my neighbors, not even me. Only one person has ever used that nickname, ever, like it was her special little thing. My sister, Danielle. Lydia watched my face change. "What?" she asked. I pointed at the word with my fingertip. "That," I said quietly. "That nickname. Only my sister calls him that." Lydia didn't react like a gossip. She reacted like someone who just got a lead. She leaned forward slightly. "Your sister," she repeated. "Why would she file this?" I could have given Lydia a whole family history. I could have cried. I could have ranted. I didn't. I kept it simple because simple is believable. "She wants custody leverage," I said, "and she wants to hurt me." Lydia's pen moved once on her notepad. Then she asked, calm and direct, "Is your sister around your child?" "No," I said, "not unsupervised and not lately." Lydia nodded slowly. "Okay." She flipped the page. "Here's what happens next," she said, like she'd said it 1,000 times. "We verify, we ask questions, we document. If there's no safety issue, it closes." That's the part people don't understand. CPS isn't supposed to run on vibes. They run on information, interviews, home conditions, records. Lydia looked me in the eye. "I'm going to ask you a few things," she said, "and I need you to answer plainly." She asked, "Where was Milo last night?" "Who else has a key to your home? Any recent conflict with your sister? Has anyone threatened to report you?" I answered every question, calm, clean, no speeches. Then Lydia said, "I also need permission to contact his school." "Please," I said. Call them right now. Because here's something I've learned the hard way. If you're telling the truth, you don't delay the truth. Lydia stepped out, made a call, and I could hear her voice through the thin wall. Professional. Clipped. When she came back, she didn't look surprised. She looked confirmed. School says he was present yesterday, she said. Picked up on time. No concerns documented. My chest loosened by maybe 1 inch. Then Lydia flipped another page and said, I still need to do a home visit. I nodded. Today? Yes, she said. And I'll be honest, this report has some very specific details. The nickname is one of them. That matters. She paused, then added something that made my skin prickle. Reports can be confidential, she said carefully, but details often reveal who's behind it. She didn't say, we'll tell you it was your sister. She didn't have to. As we stood up, Lydia's phone buzzed. When she glanced at the screen, then she looked back at me. Your sister is outside, she said. I froze. Outside where? Lydia nodded toward the front lobby windows. She's been sitting in her car, she said, watching. She asked the receptionist if you'd arrived. My stomach turned, because that meant Danielle didn't file this out of concern. She filed it like a trap and came to watch it snap. Lydia picked up the folder again and tucked it under her arm. Let's do the home visit, she said. And after that, I want you to show me every message you've ever gotten from your sister that sounds like a threat. I nodded once. We walked out through the lobby, and through the glass doors I saw Danielle's car. She was parked right by the entrance, sunglasses on, smiling like she'd already won. And when our eyes met, she lifted her phone and texted me one line. Told you I could take him. I didn't reply. I just saved it. Because if she wanted to turn my life into paperwork, I was going to give her paperwork right back. Lydia followed me home in her own car 2 blocks back, not because she was trying to be dramatic, but because that's how it works. It's a safety check. It's a show me the reality, not the story. My street was quiet. Porch lights, a couple of cars. Nothing that screamed emergency, except my sister. Danielle's SUV was parked half a block down like she was watching a movie she paid to see. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw her silhouette shift behind the windshield. She was still here. Lydia noticed it too, but she didn't say anything yet. She just got out, clipped her badge to her belt, and walked up to my porch like this was a normal Tuesday. Inside, Milo peeked around the corner, rubbing his eyes. Mom? He whispered. I'm here, I said. You're okay. Lydia crouched a little so she wasn't towering over him. Hi, Milo, she said gently. I'm Lydia. I just need to make sure you're safe at home, all right? Milo nodded like he was trying to be brave. Kids always do that. They copy your face. I made mine calm on purpose. Lydia took a quick look around. Kitchen, living room, hallway. Not snooping, just checking for the obvious. Food, lights, hazards, anything that would match abandonment. There was nothing. There was dinner still on the stove, his backpack by the door, a half-finished Lego thing on the coffee table. Lydia sat at my dining table and asked me to walk her through last night, minute by minute. Not like an interrogation, like she was building a timeline. Dinner? 7. Bath? 8. Bed? 9. Anyone else here? She asked. No. Any babysitter? No. Any time he was alone? No. Then she turned to Milo, careful. Did you stay by yourself last night? She asked. Milo's forehead scrunched up. No, he said. Mom was here. Lydia nodded and wrote one line, then asked, Did anyone come by the house? Milo thought for a second. Aunt Danny came one time, he said. My stomach tightened. Lydia looked up. When? Milo shrugged. When it was dark, she knocked. Mom didn't open. I stared at him. Honey, last night? He nodded. That would have been around midnight or later. I remembered hearing something, but I'd been half asleep and didn't get up because Milo had finally gone down. Lydia didn't react dramatically. She just asked the next logical question. "Does Aunt Danny call you by any special name?" she said. Milo's face brightened a little, like that was an easy one. "Yeah," he said. "She calls me Munch." Lydia's pen stopped, not for show, for accuracy. She wrote it down slowly, then looked at me and said very quietly, "That nickname is in the report." My throat went dry, because now it wasn't just a suspicion, it was a link. Lydia stood up. "Do you have a door camera?" "Yes," I said, already grabbing my phone. I pulled up the app and scrolled to last night. There it was, a motion clip at 12:41 a.m., Danielle on my porch, not crying, not worried, not calling for help. Just standing there, checking her phone, knocking twice, then stepping back like she was waiting for something to happen. And then, this part made my skin crawl. She angled her body slightly and looked straight toward the street like she was making sure someone could see her there. A performance. Lydia watched the clip without blinking. Then she asked, "Can you export that video?" "Yes," I said. "Do it," she said, and her voice went firmer. "And email it to me from your own account. Keep the original." I did it with shaking fingers and hit send. Lydia sat back down at the table, glanced at her notes and said, "I'm going to make 2 calls." First, she called Milo's school, brief, professional, no details beyond what she needed. When she hung up, she told me, "They confirm he was present yesterday, picked up on time, no concerns noted." Second, she called my pediatrician's office just to confirm he's established and up to date. And then she looked at me like she was switching from routine visit to, "This is going somewhere." "Your sister isn't the only person who can file a report," she said. "But the details here, nickname, porch visit, and that text you mentioned, those matter." I showed her the message Danielle sent outside the CPS office. "Told you I could take him." Lydia's face tightened. "Okay," she said. "Now we're not just closing a report. We're documenting intent." My chest loosened slightly. So this ends today? Lydia didn't promise fairy tales, but she also didn't leave me hanging. "Here's what I can tell you," she said. "This report is not matching the home conditions or the timeline. That's important." Then she paused and added, "And your sister waiting outside the office? That's not normal." As if the universe heard her, Milo's little voice piped up from the hallway. "Mom, Aunt Danny's outside." I looked through the front window. Danielle had moved her car closer. Now she was parked across from my driveway, staring straight at the house. Lydia followed my gaze, then calmly pulled her phone out and took a photo through the window. Just the car, just the plate. "Documentation," she said, like that was the only language she trusted. Then she turned to me. "I have to interview collateral contacts," she said. "That includes the person who made the allegation when there's reason to believe it may be malicious." My stomach dipped. "You mean you'll talk to her?" "Yes," Lydia said, "and I'm going to do it carefully." She stood, clipped the folder under her arm, and walked to the front door. She didn't open it. She didn't invite Danielle in. And she stepped onto the porch and simply looked down the street, where Danielle was now getting out of her car like she'd been waiting for a cue. Danielle started walking toward us with that smile that says, "I'm the hero in my own story." Lydia held up a hand, calm, firm, stopping her from coming closer. "Ma'am," Lydia called, loud enough to be heard but not loud enough to be a scene. "I'm with CPS. I need to ask you a few questions." Danielle's smile widened. "Finally," she said. "Are you taking him?" Lydia didn't react. She just asked the simplest question in the world. "Why did you use his private nickname in your report?" Danielle blinked, just once, and that blink told me more than any speech ever could, because she hadn't planned for that detail to matter. Lydia looked at her, waiting. Danielle opened her mouth, ready to lie. And at that exact moment, my phone buzzed, a new text from Danielle. "I have more evidence. Want me to send it to them?" Lydia's eyes flicked to my screen. She didn't say gotcha. She just said, low and very serious, "Save that, and don't respond." Then she looked back at my sister and said calmly, "Ma'am, we're going to talk inside my office, with your statement on record." And Danielle's smile finally slipped, because she realized she wasn't running this. Not today. Back at the CPS office, Lydia didn't bring Danielle into the same room with me. She kept it clean. She asked me to wait in a small side area with a water cooler and a stack of pamphlets nobody reads. And then she walked down the hall to interview my sister on the record. I could still see Danielle through the lobby glass, sunglasses on indoors, smiling at the receptionist like she was checking in for a spa appointment. Then she spotted me, and the smile sharpened, like, "Watch this." Lydia opened the lobby door and called her name. "Ms. Hart's sister," she said calmly. "Come with me." Danielle stood up fast. She wasn't alone. A man in a fitted jacket stood with her, early 40s, arms crossed, trying hard to look intimidating in a building full of beige walls. Danielle tilted her head toward him and said, loud enough for me to hear, "He's just here for support." Lydia didn't argue. She didn't get drawn into a scene. She just said, "Only the reporting party comes back." Danielle's support guy started to protest. But Lydia held his gaze for 1 second, flat, professional, and he shut up. Danielle followed Lydia down the hall, still smiling like she thought she was being escorted to a victory speech. I sat there staring at my phone and the clip from my door camera, replaying Danielle on my porch at 12:41 a.m., knocking twice, waiting, then checking her phone like she was timing something. A minute later, Lydia opened the door to my side room and said, "Come with me." My stomach tightened. "Am I in trouble?" I asked. "No," she said. "I want you to hear one question and one answer." She led me to a conference room with a window in the door. I stayed outside it just close enough to hear, not close enough to be in the interview. Inside, Danielle sat upright, arms folded, looking offended that she was being asked anything at all. Lydia's voice was calm. "Danielle," she said, "you filed an abandonment report. Tell me exactly what happened." Danielle leaned forward like she'd practiced this. "She left him alone overnight," she said. "He was scared. He told me he couldn't find her." Lydia didn't raise her voice. She asked one simple follow-up. "When did you speak to the child?" Danielle blinked once. "Last night," she said quickly. "Around 1. 1 a.m., Lydia repeated. "Yes," Danielle said louder. And where was he?" Lydia asked. "At home," Danielle said. "Alone. I went over because I was worried about Munch." That nickname again. Lydia didn't react with a face. She reacted with a pen. She wrote it down, then asked the question that cut clean through Danielle's whole performance. "If you believed a child was alone at 1 a.m., why didn't you call emergency services?" Danielle's smile twitched. "I didn't want to traumatize him," she said quickly. "I'm trying to protect him." Lydia didn't argue. She just slid a laptop forward on the table. I couldn't see the screen from the hallway, but I saw Danielle's eyes drop to it. Lydia's voice stayed steady. "We reviewed the home," she said. "We interviewed the child. We contacted the school. We verified the caregiver's timeline." Danielle rolled her eyes like that was cute. Then Lydia said, "And we also reviewed video." Danielle's posture changed. Not panic, annoyance. "Video of what?" she snapped. Lydia clicked once, then asked, "You said you went to the home last night. What time did you arrive?" Danielle didn't hesitate. "Around 1. Lydia's voice didn't change. "Are you sure?" Danielle leaned back. Smug. "Yes," Lydia clicked again. "Because the front door camera shows you on the porch at 12:41, she said. "You knocked twice, you waited, you looked at your phone, then you left." Danielle's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, she didn't have a clean line ready. "That," she started, then tried to recover. "That's still around 1. Lydia didn't bite. She just asked, "Did you see the child?" Danielle hesitated. No, she admitted. So you did not see him alone, Lydia said. You did not speak to him, and you did not call police. Danielle snapped, I didn't want to make a scene. Lydia's tone stayed calm, but it got colder. A false abandonment report is a scene, she said. Danielle's eyes flashed. How dare you call it false? Lydia cut in. Not harsh, just firm. I am not calling it anything yet, she said. I'm documenting inconsistencies. Then Lydia slid one paper across the table. I couldn't see it, but I saw Danielle's eyes lock onto it. What's that? Danielle asked, voice tight. Lydia answered, Your own message. Danielle went still. Because Lydia had asked me for anything that sounds like a threat, and I'd shown her. Told you I could take him. Lydia didn't make a speech about it. She just asked, What did you mean by this? Danielle scoffed, like she couldn't believe she was being questioned. It was a figure of speech, she said. She's dramatic. Lydia's voice was flat. You drove to this office and waited outside, she said. That's not a figure of speech. Danielle's support guy, still outside in the lobby, banged on the conference room door. Is this legal? He called out. Lydia didn't even look at him. She kept her eyes on Danielle. Danielle, she said, I'm going to say this clearly. If someone knowingly makes a false report, that can have consequences beyond CPS. Do you understand? Danielle's jaw clenched. I was worried, she repeated, weaker now. Lydia nodded once, as if she'd heard it enough. Okay, she said. Then answer this. Why did your report include a private nickname you're known for using with him? Danielle blinked fast. Because I know him, she said. Because I'm family. Lydia didn't react emotionally. You also described the home as if you'd been inside recently, she said. Have you been inside without permission? Danielle snapped. No. Lydia leaned forward slightly. Then the details came from somewhere else, she said. Where? Danielle didn't answer, and that silence was louder than her earlier confidence. Lydia closed her folder, slow and controlled, like she was sealing a decision. Here's what happens next, she said. We complete the investigation steps. We document our findings. And we protect the child from unnecessary disruption. Danielle's voice rose. So you're not taking him? Lydia looked her in the eye. Not based on what we've seen today, she said. I felt my knees almost go soft in the hallway. Not triumph, relief. But Lydia wasn't done. She added, and I'm also documenting this as a potentially malicious report. Danielle's face changed. Her smile disappeared completely. You can't prove that, she hissed. Lydia answered calmly, I don't need to prove motive today. I need to document facts. She stood. Was signaling the interview was over. Danielle stood too, angry now. This isn't over, she snapped. I'll go to court. I'll get custody. Lydia didn't argue. She just said, If you do, this file will follow you. Danielle stormed out of the room. As she passed me in the hallway, she leaned in and whispered low and venomous, You won't even get to pick him up tomorrow. My stomach dropped. Then Lydia came out, shut the door gently, and said to me, We need to call his school right now. She didn't wait for me to ask why. She picked up her phone, stepped into a corner, and made the call. I heard her say, Yes, this is CPS. We need to confirm the current pickup list and flag an unauthorized family member. My heart pounded, because now I understood what Danielle meant. She wasn't just trying to scare me with a report. Again, she was trying to move my child. Lydia ended the call, looked me dead in the eye, and said, Your sister might try to pick him up claiming authority. Then her phone buzzed. She read one line and her face tightened. Speaking of, she said quietly. And then she turned the screen toward me. A message from the school office. Aunt is here requesting release. Says CPS told her to. My blood went cold. Lydia was already moving. Get your keys, she said. We're going to the school. We didn't even sit down in the car. Lydia was already dialing as we walked. Calm voice, fast fingers. "This is Lydia Torres with CPS," she said when someone answered. "I need the principal or the front office manager, now. It's urgent and it involves an attempted release." I could hear my own heartbeat in the space between her words. I drove like every red light was personally offensive. When we pulled up to Milo's school, I saw it immediately. Danielle's SUV, nose in, right near the front doors like she'd parked for convenience. Not hiding, not ashamed, like she belonged there. Inside the front office, the air felt thick. A secretary stood behind the counter with that polite smile people wear when they're trying not to panic. And there was my sister, standing at the window, leaning in, talking too loudly, hands moving like she was explaining something reasonable. Milo wasn't in the office. Thank God. They'd kept him in class. Lydia stepped beside me and kept her badge visible. Not aggressive, just clear. "Hi," she said to the secretary. "I'm CPS. Is the child secure?" The secretary nodded quickly. "Yes. He's with his teacher." Lydia turned her head slightly and called out, steady and professional, "Ma'am, step away from the counter." Danielle spun around like she'd been waiting for that moment. Her smile appeared, bright, innocent, completely wrong for the situation. "Oh, good," she said. "You're here. I'm taking him." Lydia didn't react to the confidence. She reacted to the rules. "You are not authorized for release," Lydia said, "and you will not approach the child." Danielle rolled her eyes, like we were all being dramatic. "I have permission," she insisted, tapping her phone. "CPS told me to pick him up. They said his mom can't be trusted." The secretary's eyes flicked to Lydia. Lydia didn't argue. She asked one simple question. "Who at CPS told you that?" she said. Danielle hesitated for half a second, and then she threw out a name she didn't have the right to use. "You," she said. "You told me." Lydia's face didn't change. "I did not," she replied. "And you know I did not." Danielle tried to pivot, sweet voice back on. "I'm just trying to protect Munch." Lydia's head turned sharply. "Milo is not released by nicknames," Lydia said. "He's released by the authorized pickup list." Danielle's smile twitched, because the nickname had worked on the CPS report. It wasn't working here. A door opened behind us and a woman in a blazer stepped out. Principal energy, no nonsense. "Ms. Torres?" she asked. "Yes," Lydia said. "Thank you for coming." The principal looked at me. "You're Milo's mom?" "Yes," I said, voice tight. The principal nodded once, then looked at Danielle. "And you are?" Danielle lifted her chin. "His aunt." "Oh, and I'm here because his mother abandoned him." "Stop," the principal said, quiet but sharp. "This is not a courtroom." Danielle's eyes flashed. The principal turned to the secretary. "Is she on the pickup list?" "No," the secretary said immediately. "Not on the list, and we did not release him." The principal looked back at Danielle. "Then you're done here," she said. Danielle laughed like the principal had made a cute joke. "You can't keep him from family," she said. "CPS is involved." Lydia stepped in, calm as a locked door. "CPS being involved does not authorize you," she said, "and you filed a report that is currently under review for accuracy." Danielle's jaw tightened. "Under review?" she snapped. "So you're siding with her?" The principal raised her hand. Small gesture, big message. No one is siding with anyone," she said. "We're following policy, and now you need to leave." Danielle didn't move. Instead, she pulled a folded paper from her purse and slapped it on the counter like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. "Fine," she said. "Here, this is what CPS gave me." The secretary picked it up, eyes scanning. The principal leaned in. It looked official at a glance. Bold header, blocks of text, a signature line. But the principal's face didn't do impressed. It did concerned. She looked at Lydia. "Did your office issue this?" she asked. Lydia took the paper, scanned it once, then handed it back like it was contaminated. "No," she said. "We did not. Danielle's voice rose. That's a lie. Lydia kept hers level. It's not on our letterhead, she said. There's no case number. And the signature is not ours. The principal's eyes narrowed. So you brought a document claiming CPS authorization that CPS is saying is fake. Danielle's breathing went faster. It's not fake, she insisted. I got it this morning. Lydia nodded once, as if she'd just reached the part of the day where she stops hoping people will behave. She looked at the principal. Do you have a school resource officer? The principal didn't hesitate. Yes. She glanced at the secretary. Call Officer Chen. Danielle's head snapped. You're calling police on me? The principal's voice stayed calm. I'm calling our officer because you're refusing to leave, and you presented a questionable document involving a child, she said. That's enough. Danielle's eyes shot to me. This is your fault, she hissed. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because the secretary was already printing something. Fast, practiced, a student release log. She slid it to the principal. We documented her request, the secretary said. Time-stamped. The principal read it and her mouth tightened. Then she said to Lydia, she also tried to change the pickup list. My skin went cold. What? I whispered. The secretary nodded. An email came in earlier today asking to add her and remove you. Lydia's eyes sharpened. From what address? The secretary turned the monitor slightly. It was my name in the sender line. But the email address was wrong by one character, one letter, a tiny fake meant to look real. Lydia didn't gasp. She didn't narrate. She took out her phone and snapped a photo of the screen. Thank you, she said quietly. That matters. Danielle heard the words, and her confidence finally cracked. You can't prove I did that, she snapped. Lydia looked at her. You're doing it in real time, she said. Officer Chen arrived within minutes. Calm, uniformed, not there to escalate, there to end the scene. He listened for about 10 seconds, looked at the paper Danielle had slapped down, looked at Lydia's badge, then looked at Danielle. Ma'am, he said, you're not on the authorized list. You need to leave. Danielle tried the victim voice again. I'm family, she said. I'm protecting him. Officer Chen didn't move. Leave, he repeated. Now. Danielle's face twisted with anger. She leaned toward the counter and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, You're all going to regret this. She's a bad mother. The principal didn't flinch. Goodbye. Ms. Hart, she said. Officer Chen guided Danielle toward the door, not grabbing, not dramatic, just steering the situation out of the building. Danielle walked backward for a step, eyes locked on me like she wanted to burn holes through my face. Then she pointed at Lydia. This isn't over, she snapped. I'm filing emergency custody. Lydia didn't react emotionally. She just said, You're welcome to file whatever you want. The facts will follow you. Danielle stormed out. The office finally exhaled. The principal turned to me, softer now. Your son stays in class, she said. We're locking down the pickup list. Only you. No exceptions. I nodded, voice stuck in my throat. Thank you. Lydia leaned closer to the principal. I'll send a written note from CPS confirming the pickup restriction, she said. And I need a copy of today's log, the email attempt, and any security footage from the lobby. The principal nodded. You'll have it. Officer Chen handed me his card. If she comes back, he said, call the office immediately. I took it with shaking fingers. Then my phone buzzed. A notification from the courthouse. Not a text, not a rumor, a system message. Lydia saw my face and asked, What is it? I turned the screen toward her. Family court. Emergency petition filed. Temporary custody requested filed today. By Danielle. Lydia's expression tightened. Not panic, not surprise. More like, of course she did. She read the screen, then looked at me. Okay, she said calmly. Now it makes sense why she tried the school first. I swallowed. What happens now? Lydia didn't sugarcoat it. Now we make sure the court sees the full picture. she said. Her false report. The nickname, the porch footage, the school attempt, the fake email, all of it. The principal stepped closer. Do you need me to write a statement? Lydia nodded. Yes. Then the front office phone rang again. The secretary picked it up, listened, and her face went tight. She covered the receiver and whispered to the principal. There's a man here, asking for Ms. Hart. My heart stopped for half a beat. The principal looked through the lobby window. Then she turned to me. A process server, she said quietly. And before I could even move, a man in a plain jacket stepped into the office, scanned the room, and walked straight toward me with an envelope in his hand. Marissa Hart? He asked. I nodded, throat dry. You've been served, he said. And as he placed the envelope into my hands, I saw the bold words printed across the top page inside. Emergency temporary custody. Hearing tomorrow morning. I didn't sleep. Not because I was scared of court, because I was scared of the small things. Someone calling Milo's name at the wrong time, him getting pulled out of class, a stranger saying, "Come with me." So at 7:12 a.m., I was already at a family law office I'd never heard of until last night. One Lydia recommended because they move fast when kids are involved. The attorney who met me in the lobby was named Sonia Briggs. No big speech, no dramatic handshake. She skimmed my timeline once, looked at the documents, and said one thing that actually calmed my nervous system. Good, you have receipts. In her hands, my chaos became a simple stack. The CPS report with the nickname, the door camera clip, time-stamped at 12:41 a.m., the text from Danielle, told you I could take him. The school's time-stamped log of her pickup attempt, the spoofed email showing my name with the one-character mistake, Officer Chen's incident note from the front office. That's enough to stop the emergency petition, Sonia said, and it's enough to show motive. We walked into court 15 minutes early. Danielle was already there. Of course she was. She sat with her support person from yesterday, arms crossed, jaw tight, like she was auditioning for Righteous. When she saw me with a lawyer, her smile flickered and reassembled itself into something sharper. Wow, she said, loud enough for the hallway to hear. Oh, you're bringing lawyers now? Sonia didn't look at her. She just guided me to our seats and whispered, Let her talk. Judges hear tone. The clerk called the case. Emergency temporary custody. Hearing today. The judge came in, glanced at the file, and went straight to the point. Ms. Hart, he said to me, your sister claims abandonment and immediate danger. CPS is involved. School is involved. I'm not here for opinions. I'm here for facts. He looked at Danielle. Ms. Hart's sister, he said, state your claim. Danielle stood like she couldn't believe she had to explain herself. She left him alone, she said. Overnight. He was scared. I intervened. The judge's eyes narrowed. And you have proof? Danielle lifted a paper like it was a trophy. This, she said, is what CPS gave me. I recognized it instantly. And the fake authorization letter she'd tried to wave at the school. The judge took it, scanned it, and didn't even need 10 seconds. This is not on official letterhead, he said flatly. There's no case number, and this signature line is wrong. Danielle stiffened. It's real. The judge looked at Sonia. Counsel, he said, your response. Sonia stood. Your Honor, she said calmly, this petition is retaliatory and malicious. We have evidence the CPS report was fabricated. The school was targeted with a spoofed email to change pickup authorization, and the petitioner attempted an unauthorized pickup in person. She handed the clerk our packet, one clean packet, one timeline. The judge flipped through it once, then stopped on the CPS report. His finger paused at one word. He looked up. Munch, he read out loud. My Danielle's face tightened. The judge looked at me. Is that your child's nickname? Yes, I said, and only one person calls him that. The judge glanced at Danielle again. Convenient, he said, not sarcastic, just exact. Then Sonia slid forward the door camera clip printout with the timestamp. "And here," Sonia said, "is the petitioner on the porch at 12:41 a.m., the same night she claimed she spoke to the child at 1 a.m. Danielle scoffed. "So I knocked. I was worried." The judge didn't argue. He asked the simplest question. "Did you see the child?" he said. Danielle hesitated. "No." "Did you call police?" the judge asked. "No," she said, defensive. "I didn't want to traumatize him." The judge stared at her for a beat. "You traumatized him by involving CPS and attempting to remove him from school," he said. Hey, Danielle's mouth opened like she wanted to fight that sentence. Nothing came out. Sonia handed up the school log. The judge read it, then read the spoofed email detail. My name, wrong by one character. He looked at Danielle. "Did you send this?" he asked. Danielle snapped, "No." Sonia didn't raise her voice. She just held up my phone screenshots. "Your Honor," she said, "this is the petitioner texting the respondent. Told you I could take him. And later, I have more evidence. Want me to send it to them?" Danielle's eyes went hard. The judge leaned back, exhaled once, and I could feel the room shift from "she said/she said" into pattern. He looked at Danielle like he'd reached the end of patience. "Ms. Hart's sister," he said, "this court does not reward people who manufacture emergencies." Danielle tried to pivot into tears, fast, forced. "I'm his aunt," she said. "I'm protecting him from—" "No," the judge cut in. "You're attempting to control a custody situation by generating paper." He turned to the clerk. "Here's my order," he said, and he said it slowly enough that nobody could pretend they didn't hear. "The emergency petition is denied. The child remains with the mother. A temporary no-contact order is entered. The petitioner is not to contact the child, the school, or the mother, except through counsel. The school is to maintain pickup restrictions as documented. No changes without the mother in person. CPS is to attach today's information to their file. Any findings will be provided to the parties. And this matter," his eyes locked on Danielle, "is being referred for review regarding false reporting and document fabrication." Danielle went pale. "Referred?" she whispered, like she couldn't believe consequences could reach her. "Yes," the judge said. "Referred." Then he looked at Sonia. "Counsel," he said, "submit your request for attorney's fees related to this emergency hearing." Danielle's head snapped up. "Fees?" she barked. The judge didn't even blink. "Yes," he said. "Fees." He signed the order on the bench and handed it to the clerk. The clerk stamped it. That stamp wasn't loud, but it sounded like a door locking. Outside the courtroom, Danielle tried to get close. Fast. "This isn't over," she hissed. Sonia stepped between us like she'd done it 100 times. "So all communication goes through counsel," she said. "Back up." Danielle stared at me, eyes burning. "You're going to regret this," she muttered. Officer Chen was there. School resource officers don't play when kids are involved. He held up his hand calmly. "Ma'am," he said to Danielle, "you're trespassed from school property, effective immediately." Danielle blinked. "You can't?" "Yes," he said. "We can." She turned away, jaw clenched so tight it looked like it hurt. 2 weeks later, the unanswered questions part, my favorite part, came in the mail. Not another threat, not another rumor, a plain letter. CPS finding, unfounded, case closed. Inside was a sentence that made me sit down at my kitchen table and just breathe. The report did not match the child's condition, the school record, or the home visit, and the collateral information indicated the allegation was not credible. Lydia called later that afternoon. "Your file is closed," she said, "and your sister's report is documented as malicious behavior in the narrative. If she tries again, there's history." History. That's what she wanted to create for me. She created it for herself instead. Sonia emailed me one more thing. The fee order was approved. Danielle was required to pay the costs of the emergency filing and hearing. Not because anyone enjoyed it, because the system finally saw what she was doing. And the best part? Milo never even knew how close she got. He went to school the next day like normal, carrying his backpack and asking what was for lunch. That's what I wanted, not revenge. Normal. And now, if Danielle ever tries to turn my child into paperwork again, she won't be fighting me. She'll be fighting a record that already knows her name.